Hi, and we are live. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes, let people come in. Uh, all right. Hi, everyone who's here. My dog is okay. Our foster dog. She wouldn't eat dinner, and she was just laying there, and I'm like, oh my god, because she's a senior dog. She's 15, and come to find out, we're out of wet food, and she won't touch her dry food. So that was that was the problem. So I opened up a can of tuna and put some tuna fish in there with some juice. So we need to get wet dog food tomorrow, and she's eating, so she's okay. It was a little scary at first, but okay. How's everyone doing? What a day, huh? Let me get over to the YouTube side. Hey, sweet. There we go. StreamYard is still not pulling up the comments, so uh, which is weird. Why isn't? Oh, there they are. Wow. Okay. All right, Dee Dee. Hello, Dee Dee. Thank you so much for being in my live a couple of days ago. It was really great. My subs really enjoyed you. L to the no. Hi. Thanks for being here, Jenny, Nana, Patty. Hello, everyone. Sweet Dana. Lucky Lou. Hi. Okay. So I think there's quite a few people here tonight who are just burnt out. I certainly am. It is amazing how draining, and I'm going to refer to it as a narcissist can be, um, how they can consume your whole day, your whole week, if you allow it to, right? If you allow it to, and I'm guilty of allowing myself or all willing participants to be sucked in to a narcissist narrative or their actions, their behaviors, and um, get myself really pissed off. And the unfortunate thing is, there's nothing I can do to change it. Nothing. And so I still want to focus on recovery from narcissistic abuse, um, as kind of like a winding down to the end of the day, and try to give you all and myself a little hope that um, this is survivable. This people can recover from narcissistic abuse. And I thought it's important. Hi, humane girl. Clarissa. I think it's important, and I too learn along the way. I am no expert on narcissism. I am no expert, um, nor can I diagnose, but I can certainly learn the signs and symptoms and get pretty close to determining when I'm surrounding myself with someone with these narcissistic traits. Um, so I came upon, and I've known, you guys may have heard of this Dr. Les Carter. He's got a YouTube channel. He also has a podcast. He's very good. His focus is on surviving narcissism. I'm going to play a couple of his podcasts tonight, and I'm going to pause intermittently just for fair use. Um, and what my hope is that we can even learn a little bit more about the narcissist, um, and focus on self care in our recovery. As far as Mer and what she did to Randy this morning, and if anyone doesn't know, Mer reached out to the New York State Police, um, and made a false report, um, of a death threat that she accuses Randy of doing. Um, and Randy had the police at her house this morning. And as absurd as Merb can be, uh, what she did is dangerous. Um, but I'm realizing it's all part of the narcissistic behaviors. And um, I wanted to go up on BBT's live because I had an announcement to make, but unfortunately, there wasn't a link. And um, I'm I'm not I'm not going to make the announcement, not now. Um, I've made a call, um, and I'm going to need to be quiet for now. Um, but when I say to you that this is really hard for me. This won't continue. But in the interim, when everyone's waiting for this to finally stop, um, it's important for self care. And I am I am at the crossroads where um, I need to care about myself a lot more than this. Right, Dee Dee. Knox will do anything to get eyes back on them. Hmm. Hey, Curious Rose. So I think moving forward, the more we understand about a narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, regardless, the more we are educated, I think that's important in learning how to move forward, escaping their wrath, so to say, and not giving them the attention that they crave because that's what they do. They crave attention, a lot of it. Yeah, hell to the no. It's time to get serious. I agree. The accusations she's making are very serious. They're dangerous. They're wrong. Um, she's using law enforcement as a threat, not only verbally, she's actually dispatching police with serious, serious allegations. And it could put somebody, and you don't have to have someone swatted to put them in serious danger. You can just have the police show up to your house and have one cop think, yeah, this person convinced me, and or they could have edited something, whatever, and you're carted off in a police car, and then you have to fight like hell, um, to prove your innocence, because we'd like to believe that we're in a world or a country that you're innocent first. But situations like this, especially where the police aren't completely educated about internet crime, and they really aren't. We're very behind in this country with internet crime, because it's tolerated. It's tolerated too much. There's too many things that can be done to trick police officers into believing something happened when it didn't. Um, and if an officer believes there's enough probable cause to arrest somebody based on the manipulation of what someone else is reporting, it's very well that they could arrest somebody. So cops shoot dogs if they're barking. Yeah, I've recalled some cases of that. Yep. Hey, Nicole, which is why out and wrong videos are tolerated and here and even promoted with blind ear eye toward them and zero consequences. Right. I agree. Some people on YouTube have taken advantage of social media platforms and have manipulated them to the point where has created danger for other people and putting people at risk to be hurt. And Google just is not liable. They're not liable. If you want to handle it, you got to do it your own legally. So they're off the hook for now. For now. It is out of hand. It's completely out of hand. And when it's reported, they do nothing. Correct. So, okay, so I'm gonna play a podcast. Let me share. I'm just gonna do the audio, okay? And it's a podcast, so it is audio. All right. Let me see. And in the description box is a link to his podcast on the internet, and there's also a link to his YouTube channel. So let me just find. Okay, so one of them is called Mind Games Narcissist Will Play With You. Okay, it's 30 minutes. I am going to pause periodically if you have any questions. I'm reading chat. I can pause if you want to come up. Certainly, you can take the link. I just ask that you show yourself in the green room so I know it's you. Okay, and let me know if the volume's okay.
Narcissists will play with you.
Hello, once again, Team Healthy. I'm so pleased to be with you. Now, keep in mind that one of the things that I'm wanting to accomplish on our podcast here is I want us to have a real-time understanding of what it means to have a narcissistic pattern of life. Now, let's keep in mind each one of us has a certain amount of propensity towards the characteristics that make up the narcissistic pattern. When we talk about narcissism, we talk about people that are self-absorbed and they're manipulative and they have an attitude of entitlement. They want to be superior. They want to be in control. They don't have enough empathy for other individuals. And every one of us, you, me, and anyone else that you want to include on the list, can have moments where it's like, yeah, sometimes those characteristics show up in me. Now, those of us who are on Team Healthy will say, yes, I do see it. And because I see it and I want to go into the better direction, I'm going to own my possibilities and then I'm going to do something healthy about it. Narcissists, however, they not only don't see their propensities in this direction, at least in an honest way, they double down and they just make it a part of who they are. When we talk about narcissism, we're talking about people who have those characteristics in such a common, ongoing way that it's just central to the way that they engage with people.
So basically, it's their way of life. Okay, they don't change. They don't change. There's nothing that will stop them from that aha moment, like, maybe I should, maybe no, no. This it's the world revolves around them. They will never see it anything your way, no matter how loud you yell, no matter how much you cry. Uh, it doesn't compute with them. It's not there. It's not there in them, um, to show any amount of compassion. It's not there. It doesn't exist within them.
Now, today I want to focus in on two of the most primary elements of narcissism, and we're going to build on that. I want to talk about their need for control and their inclination toward manipulation. And in doing so, we're going to be talking then about some of the mind games that they'll use with you. But let's pull back and say, let's start with the notion that says narcissists feel like it's not only okay to control you, but it's necessary. Now, they won't necessarily come out and say the words, I need to control you, but their constant and their persistent pushiness and forcefulness and insistence and persuasion indicates that's exactly how they think. They want to control you. They got to make sure that you live according to their specifications, and they have such a grand view of who they are and how they think life is supposed to be, that they simply cannot allow you to be you. No, you have to come over here and be a version of what I say it ought to be.
So basically, he's saying that the narcissist, no matter what you say or feel, that is not their priority. They are always focused on control. They don't want to lose. They don't want to lose the control they have. So they are constantly, their mind, it's just like gears moving round and round. Control, 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 control. That is their main focus. So no matter what you say or how you feel, doesn't put a dent in them whatsoever. Their focus is maintaining control over their victims constantly.
And then we add to it the sense of manipulation. Again, they're not going to say, hey, come here, I'm going to tell you exactly what you have to do. Some of them will, but many of them are more sly than that, or sometimes their need to control shows up in so many other different kinds of ways that you have to pull back and say, hey, wait a minute. I just got manipulated. This person's being controlling over me. And so we're going to need to know how they go about manipulating you into their control schemes. And that's where I come back and say, we need to be aware of the games that they're quite willing to use with you. So having said that, I want to make sure that I want to identify 8 of the most common manipulation games, mind games, that narcissists will play with you. Now, the first one that I want to identify, and I know that as I say this, you're going to think, oh yeah, I've been on the receiving end of this one. I'm going to call the first one, you do trust me, don't you? Game.
Okay, so if anyone's been around a narcissist, so when he goes through all of these, press a 1 if you can identify with what the narcissist will say to you or do to you. Okay. um and again, I think it's very important that we understand the games a narcissist will play, and I truly believe it's part of your recovery, my recovery, everyone's recovery, in order to let go, in order to let go. um okay, so if you're familiar with these games, just press a 1.
You do trust me. One of the things that narcissists like to do, particularly as they're getting to know you, or if they've been around even for a long time, they like to set themselves up as the one that says, well, I really am pretty appealing. And I really am somebody that you need to look to and you need to consult with, because, well, I'm quite trustworthy in the way that I do life, and you can trust me. You just come over here and I'll tell you how to manage things, and you'll be a much better person because of that. That's how they think. Now, part of that is that they may actually butter you up for who knows what kind of period of time. I've had so many stories of people that'll say that they got close to someone and that person was very friendly and they were encouraging and they were supportive. And it's like, wow, this is somebody that is really a nice person.
So I think that they're referring, hi Lee, oh Lee, I would love you to come up. I would love Lee, like, knows everything about narcissism. She's taught me so much. I believe he's referring to love bombing, that honeymoon period, the charm, when you first meet somebody and you just think, God, they're so wonderful. And I've heard that on streams of a narcissist, I look up to you. You've done so much for me. Um, you've saved me. You saved my life, and that's one way that they get you under their wings. And the link is pinned to the top if anyone, but I just ask again that you cam up in the green room just so we don't get trolls up.
Only to find later on that it was all a setup. And here this person might go toward that narcissistic, friendly individual, and they'll open up and they'll talk about who they are. The narcissist may just have so many experiences with them that they learn one another's routines and beliefs and habits and history and all the rest. And the narcissist more or less implies, just keep coming toward me. I'm very much that trustworthy person. You can count on me. But then later on, as they have brought you into their circle, if you will, then here comes the rest of the agenda. And sometimes it's 2 weeks later. Sometimes it's 8 years later. Sometimes it's that person inside your family system. Sometimes it's in a social setting. Sometimes it's at work. Sometimes it's the person you live with. And you look back and think, well, at first, that individual really did come across as being open and receptive. Wow, that was nice. Only to find out later on that they're going to take whatever they now know about you and use it against you.
Right. So when I met a narcissist, okay, I thought I struggled with letting go because I kept thinking they used to be so nice. Something must have happened to change them. And I kept reflecting back to that love bombing period, but I didn't have a name for it. But it's love bombing. And I just kept saying, no, they weren't like this before. I want that person whom they were before when I didn't realize it was all a tactic, They love to use things later on against you. Yeah, and this is what we see a lot. Um, and I think it's easier for a narcissist to perform online because they don't have to answer to you directly. That's so frustrating, right? Take a link. They won't take a link. They feel like they have total control, but they silence you, you know? And this is why people feel like they need to defend themselves, but we all know where that goes. That goes nowhere. I mean, it's good to have a voice to speak your truth, but as far as it making a narcissist stop, no. I think it makes them angrier.
But let's keep in mind that one of the primary mind games that they'll use with you is they want you to believe that they are indeed a trustworthy person. Now, a second game that they'll typically play is what I refer to as the questions game. When I was in therapy, one of the things that just a little communication coaching tip that I would give people is I would let folks know, try not to make a point via questions. As a simple illustration, here's a real easy one. Let's suppose you're walking out the door and the person that you're inside with looks at you and says, "You're not going to wear that, are you?" Okay, they're asking a question. Well, you have their clothes on, your hand is on the doorknob, you have your keys in your hand, It's like, you're not going to wear that, are you? Okay, they're asking a question, but they're not asking a question. They're making a statement.
I'm guilty of that with my daughter. Sorry. I don't think I'm a narcissist, but when your kids go through these fashion phases, when they're ready to go to school or just out to the mall to hang out, and you see your daughter dressed in you're like, you're not gonna wear that, are you? Yeah. I'm guilty of it, but far from a narcissist. But it to me, it was just like, I didn't want the argument, so I figured if I put it that way, as if my daughter's gonna turn around and say to me, "Oh no, mom, I just dressed like this just for a second so you could see it." Come on, come on. We know exactly they're gonna go out. Lee, it won't drop. Okay, hold on. Let me drop it. Uh, invite. Give me 1 second, honey. Okay, try that.
What they're saying is, I don't like what you're wearing. You ought to go change clothes. That's an illustration of what I'm talking about. Or let's suppose that you say, well, here's my opinion about how we need to manage thus and such. And then that narcissist can say, where did you come up with an idea like that? Now, actually, there are times when a question of that nature can be reasonable. Help me understand your reasoning and how you arrived at a conclusion like that. But the way I just put it, no, that's not where they're coming from. Again, they're asking a question, but in doing so, they're making a statement. So when you say, here's how I'm going to manage this, and they ask the question, it's their way of saying, I don't like what you're saying, and you need to change your mind. Or it may be that they'll say, how did you draw that conclusion? Or why are you being so ridiculous? Or are you in a bad mood?
I believe that's guilt shaming. Lee, can you just cam up? You're in the green room. I'm not going to bring you up on cam. I just need to make. I've been like trolled with, you know what? I don't see. Okay, I think I see you. All right, put the camera back on, honey. Okay, put it back on. Is that you?
Yes, it's me. I'm listening
Lee?
to this guy,
Oh,
but I already
have
have
you
one
heard
thing
him
to
before?
say. Yes, and I already
Yeah.
have one thing to say about what he's saying, and then I'm going to mute because I'm going to make some coffee and listen. But I will say one thing
Okay.
narcissists do that people don't always talk about. They ask questions they already know the answer to.
They ask questions they already know the answer to.
Correct. And that's where they, that's one of the things they do that's unnerving. But continue.
Can you give an example?
I have to think. I got to make coffee. I fell asleep and took a little nap. So let me make a cup of coffee and listen, and I'll think of example.
Okay.
All right. Honey.
So they have all these questions that they will ask you, and basically, it's a form of gaslighting. They're more or less letting it be known, I don't think you know anything. I don't think you know how to do life, and rather than being blunt and knocking you upside the head, I'm just going to do it more in an oblique kind of way. I'm just going to let you know. I think we need to go back and rethink everything that you stand for. That's the game. It's their way of trying to control you. It's manipulative in the sense that instead of them being straight up and directive, they're just trying to pull, well, like I say, the gaslighting thing. They want to create doubt in you, which of course means that they are the certain ones. So you need to let go of your ambiguous way of doing life and come over to their way of doing things. That's their control and manipulation combined in that one game I call the questions game.
And I think too, when it comes to children of narcissistic parents or parents, when they speak about what I talked about a couple of days ago, the guilt and shaming, in recovery, and why a lot of children, when they grow up to be adults, don't always speak up about their experience because they're still feeling guilty or shameful because of this exact behavior of how they were spoken to, they were doubted, they were made to feel guilty, in part of, and that's where their recovery, they need to confront those issues, and importantly surround themselves with people who've been through similar experiences. Surround themselves with good people and loving people and supportive people. Um,
All right, there's a third game that we want to
Hi,
identify.
Carla.
And this one I'm going to call, okay, here's what's wrong. Now, you can easily figure out where we're going with that one. I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. This is one just to get you to think. In other words, it's not part of the questions game. How many times does that narcissist in your presence express criticism? Okay. Can you think about that one? Narcissists are the constant critics. And you'll notice that it's so easy for them to pronounce what's wrong. It may be that that you've done something, and they'll say, "Well, that worked out real well." And then there's the next word, but I don't think this thing happened as cleanly as we wanted it to. And so they can criticize you, they can gripe, they can complain. And I've had so many people that will come to my office, or I'm just talking with them privately, and they'll say, "I can't do anything right." Okay, so it's good in healthy relationships when we notice that there's a mistake, or when we notice that there is truly a blunder or a miscalculation, to sit down with the other person and say, let's talk about that. And so we need one another to give honest feedback, and to, the old iron sharpens iron kind of thing. But that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about the narcissist. When I talk about the, okay, here's what's wrong game, I'm talking about individuals that's like, that's their go-to way of engaging. You constantly feel like you're under their microscope. And if you say something in your mind, it's like, well, am I going to hear what's wrong with that? And what it does is it throws you off your stride. I want you to think, when you're around someone that you just know is that constant gripe and complainer and the one who always has the better way, how comfortable do you feel around that person? And of course, the answer is not. You don't feel comfortable, and that's part of the game. See, there's the control element.
It's like it's like when they say walking on eggshells, because you know what they're going to do. For every answer or response or statement that you make, they're going to tear you down in some way through guilting, shamefulness. And imagine a child growing up with a narcissistic parent and just tearing apart at that child's self-esteem. It's awful. I feel horrible, especially for children who grow up in this way. Thank you for showing up. Josh, hope you're doing well.
When you're feeling uncomfortable, you're less inclined to be who you are. Okay, that's the control. You're less inclined to speak up and say, well, this is me. You don't have a sense of freedom. You don't have a sense of spontaneity. It's like, well, if I say or do or pronounce something, it's probably going to be wrong. So you become inhibited. And that's how they maintain control over you, the constant criticism. But of course, it's done in a manipulative kind of way. And of course, one of the things they'll do when you call them out on it, it's like, would you back off? And you say something about it, they'll just come back and say, I'm just trying to be helpful, which is kind of a variation of game number one. You trust me, don't you? I'm just trying to be helpful. No, you're not trying to be helpful. You're not being trustworthy. You're being critical. But in their mind, it's like, no, this is a good thing.
I think what that can lead to, and this is just my opinion, and he might talk about it, I'm not sure, But I think this is when gaslighting comes into play. When what gaslighting is, it is when you are put down and manipulated. You know, often you start to question your own reality, right? You start to
Well,
question, well,
you
maybe it
know,
is me.
yeah. Well, what I find similarly with all of them is they speak in a condescending manner. Like, let's say that you plan on trying to enroll in a particular school. So we're talking somebody younger. You're going to try and enroll in that school? Which is condescending, like, you can't get in there. You know what I mean? But it's a
Right.
question.
Exactly.
It's also a question. It's condescending and it's a question.
Right. It's a good example. Yeah.
And by the way, just
And then,
a quick aside.
oh, sorry. No, and then, as that keeps happening and happening and happening, that's what kind of eventually tears a person down because it
Yeah.
starts subtle. And let's another thing too, like, oh, you won't believe it. I just got a bonus. Really? They'll come up with stupid answers like that. Like, really? Like, oh, I'm surprised you got a bonus. But at the same time, wow, you got a bonus, dummy?
Yeah.
It's a condescending, and it's a question. If anyone has wondering if someone's a narcissist or not, you will really take notice. They're very difficult communicators, and it's always a sentence to try and communicate, but it's a question and condescending at the same time. That's a little tip for anyone out there.
Yeah. Good. That's a good tip.
You're welcome.
Criticism is actually a very thin cover for anger. Narcissists may not necessarily want to come out full force with their anger. Many times they do. But each time you hear a narcissist being critical toward you, just realize that you just received a little mini anger communication, and it's interesting to look at it from that angle. Okay. Now, a fourth mind game that narcissists love to play is what I refer to as the whisper campaign. Narcissists.
This should resonate with a lot of us. If I think where this is leading to, whispering, this will be interesting.
They want to make sure that not only do you feel hesitant about who you are, but they want other people to feel that way, so that when you find out that other people feel that way about you, then it just keeps you that much in a down position. And so narcissists like to go behind your back and let other individuals know, oh boy, I'm dealing with a really difficult person here. And so they'll do the whisper campaign. For example, let's suppose that you have a friend and you've been close friends with that person for a long time, but you've had this narcissist off to the side. It could be and say something like, can you help me understand something? My person over here has been acting really unusual lately, and I'm really concerned. And then they may say something about you, and your friend may try to give an explanation, and the narcissist may say, well, just know that something is happening here. I'm not too sure about it, but help me out. If there's anything that you can do to help me understand, I would really appreciate it. And so they come across as this concerned person, but ultimately they'll do what they can to erode other people's confidence in you. Let's suppose you're in a work setting and that narcissist wants to be in total control, and you have some good ideas about how to manage things. Instead of going straight to you, the narcissist can use the term that we call triangulation. They go to another party and they say, hey, look, this individual over here, they're telling you we need to do this, but why don't you and I understand that we need to do it this way? And because here's my reasoning. And so they undermine you, they sabotage you. That's what I refer to as the whisper campaign. It's like the narcissist wants other people to think and feel that they have the inside scoop on you, and in their questioning of you behind your back, they want other individuals to have the same lack of confidence that they have, because we go back to our word control. It's the narcissist way of trying to maintain control over you.
I wonder if that saying two's company and three's a crowd came from that kind of behavior.
Well, actually, it's not exactly talking behind the back. That doesn't happen right away. I'm trying to find an example. Okay.
Well, you know what I found interesting, when when a victim leaves the narcissist and the narcissist realizes that they've lost control, like that person's not responding to them, they're not going to play their game of tag you're it. What I've seen is what they do is they start to assassinate their characters to other people.
They've already done that. At that point, that's already been done, but the person who's the victim is unaware at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you're going to find out about this eventually. They go back to the questions game. Who told you that? Or why are you even asking me about this? And then they'll deny it, or they give their spin on it that somehow gets them off the hook. But that's how they play you. It's insidious, isn't it? Love to do is they love to gather information about you.
Oh.
Let's pull back for just a moment.
Lean in, everybody. They love to gather information about you. Right. Lean in.
I'm speaking personally. Whenever I get to know individuals, I like knowing about some of their backstory and who they are and what they've been through to get to the position where they are right now. And part of me learning about another individual's backstory is I like to know about their humanity. What highs have you had, but also what lows have you had? What are some of your successes, but what are some of your failures? And I don't ask or seek information regarding that in a morbid kind of way, or in a way that implies that I'm going to now have some material that I can judge them with. You see, part of my desire to find out someone's backstory is, well, I have a backstory too. And as I know who you are, then I can share who I am, and we can have a sense of equal footing where there's authenticity and openness and honesty, and then we can have a mutual sense of regard and encouragement for one another in the midst of our humanity. That's how healthy relationships will play out. Narcissists love to find out about your backstory, but for very different reasons. Going back to my two things that I'm looking at here, control and manipulation, they want to know some of the things about you, and the more cringeworthy the information is that they find out, the more it's like, oh, I am so going to use this. Now, up front, they may actually come across as being concerned. They may come across as being your friend. But over time, then it's going to come out, but it's going to come out in a very different kind of way that they remember. They remember all the things that you've said, and it's going to come back and come against you. It's going to bite you in the backside. So, for example, suppose that you've been in a relationship with that narcissistic person. They've learned quite a few things about you. And then later on, as tensions arise, or as the friction between you and that person begins to increase, then they can come back and say something like, yeah, and you told me that 19 years ago such and such happened, and now I'm beginning to understand why that happened. And I'm beginning to understand why people didn't have confidence in you. And you're thinking, well, I shared with you something from my deep past, and that was quite a while back, and you're now using that against me. And
Lee, I think when it gets to that point, it becomes so horrible. It becomes so horrible and destructive and dangerous.
These people keep a Rolodex.
You don't know. use or interpret or twist that could actually be dangerous. You know,
Oh, yeah. Narcissists are very dangerous people, let's face it. But they do keep a Rolodex on everything you have
yeah.
told them. When you first meet them, the love bombing, they get every information about you from here to some forever. I mean, I'd say from here to
Mhm.
Canarsie, but some people might not know what that means.
Yeah.
And they keep a Rolodex. Another thing is, which was regarding what he spoke to before, when you're talking about like things happening and the smearing and all that. I'm trying to think of an example. Here's an example. Okay, this never happened to me, so I'm just trying to give an example. Let's. This is how things happen within families, because a lot of it, when it's husband and wife, we know what happens, But
Mhm.
when you have a narcissist in the family, you listen to Make Up Mops's grief series, and you could really understand the damage to an entire family one
Yeah.
narcissist coming in can do. But hey, I'll give an example. Let's just say, I'm talking now, let's say hypothetical. I have a brother or a sister, me, and their daughter likes to hang out at my house all the time and says, "Oh, Aunt, can I help you? Oh, I'll wash the dishes. Oh, can I do something else? Oh, well, you could take a load out of the dryer." So this is going on, and I'm thinking I got the greatest niece in the world, because kids, they start young being narcissists, So, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, I'll get a phone call from the mother. My daughter can't come to your house no more. Why? Because she said every time she comes, she's a slave. You make her wash the dishes. You make her do this. You make. I said, what? You know what I mean? I would be saying, what? Here I am thinking I have such a wonderful niece. She wants to be so helpful at this, but she's telling her mother that she comes over and I'm turning her into a slave. It's kind
Yeah.
of crazy shit. Okay, it's really difficult to find examples, because by the time you find out you're with a narcissist, you're like, what the hell happened? What's going on? Generally, the person's in a state of shock because they really thought they had
Right.
something sincere with this person.
Right. And you can't. I find that you can't make sense of it. Like, there's no logic to it, and it's
Well, that's the
frustrating.
most difficult part, Pink. There's no why. And that's why people can't find closure, and they ruminate, they're trauma bonded. It's a heck of a lot more serious than people think.
Yeah.
And the narcissist, if they were honest, would say, yeah, I do. I like to find out things about you because you see, I'm keeping score. And when I need to, then I'm going to bring the scorecard out and I'm going to show you how many marks you have against me based on your own words, based on your own declarations. And it's like, really, you would be willing to do that? And again, if the narcissist were honest, it's like, oh yeah, it's indigenous to my character. Of course, that's what I do. And it's an insidious mind game that they play with you. They're not safe people, and they don't care what kind of damage they do to you before you find out. Okay. Now, a sixth mind game that narcissists will play with you is what I would refer to as the blame shifting game. So let's take what I just said about their scoreboarding and then acknowledge that over time, as you get to know the narcissist, you're going to also find out negatives about them. And you're going to catch them making mistakes, or you're going to find out something about their past that's not very flattering. And so you could, if you wanted, you could play the scoreboarding game right back toward them. But narcissists will go into the blame shifting game. And in the blame shifting game, whenever you find out about their negatives, instead of saying, yeah, you got me, they'll say, well, there's a perspective that you don't know yet. And let me tell you what it is. And of course, whatever problems you learn about them, whatever frailties you find out about the narcissist, They're going to have an excellent explanation, and it's always someone else's fault. They're going to be the victim. They're going to more or less imply,
Always.
I got a raw deal. I'm such a wonderful person, but I had a bad set of circumstances. And had I not had those negative circumstances, I would have done nothing but do the right thing. And you're over there thinking, but you didn't have good circumstances. And plus, we can find out a lot about a person's character by watching about how they deal with their conflicts. Just be honest about it. And narcissists cannot take responsibility for who they are.
That is so true. And it's so frustrating. Even if they get caught, even if there's proof,
That's an absolute fact. They never, ever take responsibility for any of their actions. They're always right. Absolutely.
And you could have the proof. You could catch someone in the act of doing something that's wrong or even criminal, and they have an excuse.
Right. Absolutely.
They're relentlessly, they are relentless.
Well, we witnessed that with the jail in NOLA. We witnessed that till the end of the last second, well over a year.
Oh, yeah.
There's an example. They never admit to any wrongdoings ever.
They are more than happy to kick you when you're down, but then when you have an opportunity to do the same with them, it's always someone else's fault, and they'll sidestep it, and they simply cannot say, yeah, I blew it. I'm a mistake maker just like everyone else. They're constant. They are the consummate blame shifters, okay? Now, a seventh mind game that narcissists love to play, and this may be one of the most common ones of all, and that is we're going to call this the appeal to the agenda game. Keeping in mind that narcissists like to have control over you, that the implication is they have an agenda. They already have it fixed in their mind how things are supposed to unfold. They have what they consider to be the standard operating procedure about how to manage who knows what. And by the way, guess who gets the rules for the standard operating procedures? It's the narcissist. Here's the way things have to be. And so when they're not able to deal with your distinctives, or when you bring your feelings or needs or just separate preferences to them, instead of saying, well, let's see if we can work to blend and coordinate here with one another, it's like, no, what we need to do is we need to appeal what the rule book says. And so, as written by them. And so let's suppose that you say, I'm feeling tense and anxious today because of this, that, and the other. And they start coming out with all of these bits of advice that you didn't ask for. Well, you need to do this, and you need to quit doing that. And in their lack of empathy, they just constantly come at you, telling you what you need to do. And you're over there thinking, hey, look, I'm just trying to share with you my humanity, or I'm just talking with you about routine kind of matters. And is that all you can do? Just constantly appeal to the rule book and tell me what I'm supposed to do next? And the answer is, yeah, I'm a controlling person. And if they, in their unsolicited advice, can keep you off your game, that's the manipulation part, then in their mind, they win. And then an eighth mind game that narcissists will play with you is what I refer to as the baiting game. One of the things that narcissists love to do is they love to make you look like the person who's off base. And they have, as we're talking here, you can see that they have quite a bit of their own dysregulation in their life. But rather than saying, I have my issues, you have yours, whenever there's a problem, they want to make sure that whatever is going on in them is not nearly as bad as what you have going on inside yourself. So let's suppose that the narcissist is tense and angry. And so what they'll do is they'll say something rude to you, and then you come back and you say something that's tense and angry. And then the narcissist in their baiting game can say, look at how miserable you are. I'm trying to tell you something about myself, and you're over there just being argumentative. Of course, they're the one that set the whole thing up. And then when you respond and say, You're always doing this to me. Quit it. Leave me alone. Then they can come back and say, see, you're so impossible.
They're very competitive too. Like if you have an experience, okay, for example, you know, say you lost a loved one and they did too. It's always a competition. Even with like situations that we all should be show humanity toward. Loss is loss, and it's like, well, my loss was greater than yours. Or if you lost a job, they always have a comeback, like they minimize your own
Yeah, but see,
grief.
I don't think that's a major sign of narcissism because a lot of times communication is a two-way street. And if you're having a conversation with someone
Yeah,
and the other person did have a similar event and it was legitimately worse, they could just be trying to be compassionate and let you know, hey, I understand because this happened to me, even worse. That doesn't mean they're a narcissist, you see. But if it's
right.
a pattern, if it continues over years where they're always trying to get one up, if something happened to you, if you buy a pair of boots, they got to buy the same kind of boots, but the next level up high. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If you join a club, a crocheting club, they don't crochet, they'll get a needle and walk in and pretend they know how to. You know what I mean?
yeah. And this is all for control, yeah? I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people ask me, and I don't have the answer to because I don't
It's
think
not
there is.
control, it's to show superiority and to show I am smarter than you. I've been through more than you. But what I'm saying is, I don't want people out here to think when I talk to someone about something that's happened and they come back with something similar that happened to them or even worse, that's not always a sign of a narcissist. But if it continues over a long period of time where they have to have a one-uppance, then yes, it's a sign.
So Lee, what's people ask me what their end game is, and all I know is I don't. There isn't a goal. It just seems so
The end
continuous.
game is for them to be puffed up and feel great and feel superior. And the thing is, no matter what they do, believe it or not, nothing bothers them. They could sleep like a baby. They don't worry if their mortgage hasn't been paid for 3, 4 months. They don't give a crap. They don't care about anything. They come first. Their needs come first.
So they have no boundaries. It's
No, they don't. They
like
don't know
like
how to
people
feel.
like for an example, and I'll put it right out there. Calling the police and filing a false police report, knowing the consequences could be serious for filing a false police report, but they do it anyway.
Because they get off
Like,
on it. They get off. They're sick people, hon. I know it's
yeah,
hard for someone who's normal to wrap it around their head.
but I mean, you could end up arrested. You could end up in jail. I mean, it happened to Oni, who used to hang out with
Mhm.
Molly Golightly because
Mhm.
he kept um, calling the police, filing false police reports and getting people swatted.
He got he
Uh,
he wound up going to jail.
no,
You know
they
that for a
charged him
fact?
with misdemeanor. He got off
Oh,
pretty lightly, but still, he's got a record.
but the idea
Uh,
is these people are smart. I mean, look at the stuff some of these people get away with, and you say, how on earth do they keep getting away with this stuff? They're very
right,
clever. They're very clever.
right. There's
It's,
three
it's like
minutes.
they wait. It's like they're wearing like an armor. They get away with. They torment. They destroy. It's almost like somebody walking around with. I mean, like the narcissist I look at is like someone with like wearing like a thick armor. They don't feel anything. Everything just bounces right off them. They don't care. They don't care, and they love to. I mean, there's some. They like to inflict pain emotionally. The
That's
thing is,
that's sadism.
Well, I
That's
was just going to
sadistic.
say
When
they are sadistic, and like H.G. Tudor says, there's many levels of narcissists.
yeah,
There's many levels. Yeah, it's very complicated illness.
there's 3 minutes left of
And the thing
this.
that blows my mind is, they all run by the same playbook. That's the, and now, remember I had said, because what, we're 5 years now on this drama community, and now they're discovering what I had said from the
Almost.
very beginning. A lot of it is genetic. It's also genetic in families, whereas 5 years ago, it was just considered, oh, when you were a kid, your mother treated you wrong. No, not everything is mommy's fault. A lot of it, I believe, is genetic and environmental. It's not always a narcissistic mother or father. Yes, there's plenty of narcissistic parents, but a lot of it to me is genetics. It runs in the family line,
Yeah.
and then it's the environment. And like, I'll give you an example. My little granddaughter, I already see major narcissism in her. I see it. She's a little pip. She's 10 years old. I had her here one weekend, and she got in trouble in school. Something happened on the bus. She is the most adorable little thing you want to see. And I have to say, she adores me. So I have her over she wants to stay with me for a whole weekend. She's like a little yada yada, like she's 10 going on 18,
Yeah.
And she's telling me she comes Friday night, yada, yada, yada. Grandma, I'm in trouble. What happened? Well, blah, blah, blah on the bus. And mommy and daddy now are going to have to come to the school. I go, well, why don't you just, go to the school, see if you can meet with the social worker, make an apology. Grandma, I didn't do it. I didn't do it, Grandma. I go, okay. I drilled her Friday night, right? Then we ate, forgot about it. Saturday, we're having breakfast. After breakfast, I mentioned it again. She's telling me the whole story. Grandma, I didn't do it. Okay, tell Grandma give me a little bit more specifics. Okay, fine. Now we're going out shopping. We're going to the mall, right? So we're eating. I bring it up again, just for a few seconds. You really have to think about going to that social worker. And again, Grandma, I didn't do it. Wait till you hear this. This is a true story. So now we go Saturday night. We eat. I make her what she wants. Sunday, we make breakfast. We did something. I didn't get her home till Sunday night, right? Sunday afternoon, my son comes to pick her up, right? And I go, I don't want to say her name. I go, honey, she goes to run to her father. I says, come back. She goes, what? I says, get back here. I got to tell you something. I go, listen, Monday, go right to the social worker and admit that you did that, okay? And you don't want mommy and daddy to come to the school, okay? Apologize for what you did. Okay, Grandma, I promise. That's what I'm going to do. She was lying the whole weekend. And then she looked back at me like, damn. No, but she looked back at me like, damn, I couldn't fool. I thought I fooled Grandma all weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
They lie. They pathological. I mean, she's just, all children have a bit of narcissism in them. Don't get me wrong. She's a little dull.
Right.
But that's where the manipulation comes in. If I would have bought it, okay, you know what? I could give Grandma some more bullshit next year or in 6 months, because Grandma's going to believe anything I say. You understand what I'm saying? Parents have to be alert.
Right.
Because that's how the parent helps create a narcissist. But the narcissism's already there a lot of times genetically.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just bringing awareness to it. I mean, like you said, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, you were talking about it. That's how I started learning about it. But I didn't hear it anywhere else. All of a sudden,
Right.
it's come to the forefront, and there's so much.
Yeah, I missed the boat. I should have started a channel then and really got into it. But I want to tell you one thing. The best, to me, one of the top 3 people that discuss narcissism, we know who they are, Sam, HG, but Dr. Ramani. Dr. Ramani is phenomenal. She's sweet. Her delivery is excellent, and it's much more explainable. So just make a note of that, Dr. Romani, anyone that wants to know a little bit more about narcissism.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just drop her link. Dr. Romani. There you go, folks. Thanks, Lee. Okay, let me just finish
Oh,
this.
look, Jenny
They
Vaughn
will-
says, Lee is important. Thank you, darling. Thank you. That's what my daughter says.
Lee knows a lot about narcissism. You're writing a book, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
6 years in the works.
that's okay. That's okay.
Never ending.
The same as narcissists. They're never ending. Okay, here we go.
you up to look bad because it somehow overshadows their negatives. And so when you play their game of agitation and irritability and non-cooperation, they're thinking, okay, I have you on the end of my hook now. Let's see what you can do to wiggle off of that one. And they overlook, of course, their dysfunction, and all they want to do is look at how awful of a person you are. So here I have 8 mind games that narcissists will play. And frankly, if I had time, I'd come up with another 8. They're constantly looking for ways to be in control over you. But then what's worse is they like to be as coy or manipulative as they possibly can. They like to keep you guessing, the gaslighting that's there. So they like to keep you in the dark about what their real intentions are. And your task is to be able to see it for what it is. Now, people will ask me, well, should you confront the narcissist when you catch them in these games? And my response is, well, it's not a wrong thing to confront them and say, hey, look, I'm onto it. I see what you're doing. But with the games that we've talked about, the scoreboarding and the blame shifting and all the rest, you're not likely to get a straight up answer from them. And so, yeah, it's okay to confront. More importantly, I think it's necessary for you to have a sense of assertiveness. And assertiveness means you stand up for who you are and you establish your boundaries, with the understanding that even when they don't agree with you, you go ahead and do it anyway. People ask me, well, I tried to be assertive and it didn't work, so what do I do now? And the implication is assertiveness is supposed to make the other person change their mind. And assertiveness is not for the purpose of making others change your mind. It's just for you to stand up for yourself. And if the narcissist continues to be, narcissistic, then factor that into the equation and be who you're going to need to be anyway, and quit justifying yourself. Drop any illusion that you're going to make them reform, and instead let them play their games. But then, you know what we're also going to do? There's one more game that I'm hoping you can see that they get to play, and that's the game of solitaire. Let them play their games, but they're going to play it all by themselves because you're not going to participate in them. That's when you know that you're onto it, and that's when you know that you can move away towards your own healthiness, not letting them set your pace. Play your solitaire games, Mr. or Mrs. Narcissist. I'm not going to join in with you in the least.
Amen.
I hope this gives you some good things to think about. And just know that I'm wanting you to stick with me here on Team Healthy. We stand for dignity, respect, and civility here. And put some thought into how this is going to apply to you, and who knows how many different kind of circumstances. And I look forward to the next time that we get to be together and talk about another dimension of.
I like that. I like that. He's, he's easy for me to understand, but also what's important is that, if you ever doubt yourself that you're going crazy or you're not.
Well, the idea is he makes it sound so easy, when you notice it, just walk away. No, sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have children. Sometimes it's a close family member. He's not discussing on ways to deal with it, but I'll tell you one of the ways to deal with it if anyone's interested. The only way you can deal with the narcissist, if there's one you have to deal with, speak very little and just give a lot of compliments and speak very little to them. Don't give them any ammunition or anything